Hello everyone, I hope all of you are doing good. I am Roshni from Learner Hub, the free learning platform. So today I am here with the fifth video and a very important one of the series on Natural Resources Class 9 Science. And trust me, this is a super duper important video because in this video we are going to discuss about the water cycle, the nitrogen cycle and also about the process of nitrogen fixation. Let's get started. So we are now going to talk about some very important cycles called the biogeochemical cycles. So what is biogeochemical cycle? So let us focus more on the name bio, which means life. Geo means earth and chemical, okay, it means chemicals. So all the biotic and abiotic components of the ecosystem, they interact among each other in some or the other way. For example, living beings need water. So living organisms, which is the bio component, interact with water, which is not a bio component, which is a non-living component, that is abiotic component. Similarly, plants need soil. So plants, again, a biotic component, soil, abiotic component. So these are nothing but interactions between the biotic and abiotic components. So biogeochemical cycles, they tell us about the constant interaction and transfer of energy between various components of the biosphere. So we will see that there is some sort of transfer of energy from one component to the other. Like when we talk about, let's talk about the food chain. For example, human beings, they feed on plants, right? So human beings feed on plants. So what's happening? The energy stored in the plants is getting transferred to human beings. Now these human beings, they also need water, or you can say plants need water. So plants are dependent on water. So in a way, there is an interaction between water, plants and humans. So there is not only an interaction but also a transfer of energy between these. So these cycles tell us that how a particular component is exchanged between different parts of the biosphere. How a particular component, for example, if you talk about water, how water gets cycled from earth to the atmosphere to different living organisms. So how this entire cycle works. So in biogeochemical cycle, all the biological, geological and chemical factors are involved, and that is why they are called biogeochemical. So we will talk about 4 biogeochemical cycles, and they are water cycle, nitrogen cycle, carbon cycle and oxygen cycle. So let us start with water cycle. So what is water cycle? So basically water cycle will tell us how the amount of water is cycled between various components of the biosphere. Now, let's think in this way. For example, rain. So rain happens how? From the atmosphere. The clouds are there in the atmosphere. So clouds are nothing but droplets of water in the condensed form. So when these clouds, they fall to the earth or fall to the ground, that is rain. Now when rain happens, it seems as if the content of water which was there in the atmosphere, it came down from the atmosphere to the earth. So does that mean that the amount of water in the atmosphere has now reduced? No. There is something else which is kind of compensating the amount of water in the atmosphere. That is, what we are trying to say is now there are certain processes by which water from the atmosphere is coming down. On the other hand, there are certain processes by which water from the ground is going up to the atmosphere. And as a result of these two kinds of processes, the net amount of water remains constant. So let us look at this picture on the screen. So let's talk about one such process. For example, during the daytime, by the sun's heat, what happens? The water in the water bodies undergo evaporation. So water in the water bodies like oceans or fresh water or springs or ponds or lakes, so they all evaporate to form water vapor. On the other side, the water vapor, they condense to form or to give rise to rain. So from one side water is going up to the atmosphere, from the other side the water is coming down from the atmosphere in the form of snowfall, rainfall, or whatever form of precipitation. So that's the water cycle. Now, the process is not that simple. Now, I think looking at the picture, you can understand that this process is not very simple, because there are multiple number of ways in which water is going up to the atmosphere, and again there are multiple number of ways by which water is coming down to the earth. So let's look at the process in a more organized manner. So what happens? So one way by which water goes into the atmosphere, evaporation of water from water bodies due to the heat of the sun. So this is one way by which water goes above, right? So this is how water goes above. Perfect. There is another way by which water can go above to the atmosphere, that is by transpiration from leaves of the plants. What is transpiration? The loss of water from the stomata of leaves of plants. So you would have seen that plants get water from the soil through their roots, and the excess water in the plants is lost through the tiny pores present on the leaves of the plants. So that loss of water is known as transpiration. So by the process of transpiration also the water is released into the atmosphere. So these are the two processes by which water is released into the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. Now, so in this case, water is going to the atmosphere. So what are those processes by which water from the atmosphere will come down? Let's have a look. So what happens is, these water vapor which are getting accumulated in the atmosphere, this water vapor condense to form clouds. That is, all the water vapors, when the temperature falls down, the water vapors condense to form tiny water droplets which accumulate over the dust particles present in the atmosphere to form clouds. Now the condensed water vapor falls as rain, snow, or sleet depending upon the temperature. So when the clouds become heavy enough, they fall as rain or as snow if the temperature is very low. So that's how rainfall happens. So basically, rainfall is one way by which water from the atmosphere falls to the earth. So you see what's happening. So let's say that these are the water bodies, okay, or like oceans, lakes, rivers, or whatever. So from these water bodies, the waters are getting evaporated. So they form water vapor, which in turn form the clouds, and again these clouds fall as rainfall back to the water bodies. This is a very simple look of this water cycle. But besides this, there are other processes also. For example, transpiration also adds to the water vapor. Now it is not only rainfall which directly comes to the water bodies. Some of the rain water also comes to the underground water, also becomes the underground water which we fetch in the form of wells or tube wells. Some of the water also get used up by various living organisms, like we drink water, we use water for cooking, so we do all of that. But finally the unnecessary water, or the excess of water comes out of our body also, and that water also finally meets the ocean. So that's the entire logic of water cycle. Now when it falls as rain, now the rainwater doesn't go to the ocean directly, but it can go to many other places. For example, it can remain as surface water, like the water which is flowing on the roads, on the streets, that's surface water. It can be underground water in the sense the water which is fetched through wells or tube wells. It can also get into the water bodies like ponds, lakes, or rivers. Water in the soil promotes plant growth. So the water which goes deep inside the soil, that water gets utilized by the plants. Water fetched for drinking, cooking, and all other purposes through wells or tube wells. So see, these are the various ways by which the rainwater gets utilized. But at the end of it, what happens? So if you look at any of these, what happens to this water at the end? So the surface water might fall finally into a river, and the river will finally meet the ocean. The underground water might get fetched by using wells or tube wells, and then they might be used for cooking or drinking. Finally, a part of the water will get utilized by the living bodies, but the excess water will again be excreted either in the form of urine, and then that also goes through your sewage. And where does your sewage go? That also gets treated and the treated sewage is again dumped into some water body, right? And that water body again finally meets the sea. So the end result of all of these is the sea. So that means this starting point was also from the sea, that is evaporation of water from the sea formed the water vapor, and here also all of these water is going back to the sea. So we see that there is a kind of balance which is getting maintained in this entire ecosystem. So water from all sources ultimately reach the water bodies. Now in between this, a lot of other things are happening. Now a lot of water is getting utilized by plants, a lot of water is getting utilized by marine animals, by human beings, by insects, by birds. So all of that is happening in between. But if you look at it from end to end, you see that water is the water cycle starts from the sea and it also ends at the sea. So it is a cycle, or it is a cyclic process. That is why it is called water cycle. So this water cycle tells us that how the content of water is maintained in the biosphere. So you see, we have formed this cycle. So all the water reaches the water bodies, and again from the water bodies evaporation of water would take place. Now let us talk about the next cycle, which is nitrogen cycle. So nitrogen is the most abundant element in the Earth's atmosphere. So if you look at the composition of atmosphere, you see nitrogen is 78% of the Earth's atmosphere. So that's nice. Where do we find nitrogen? So nitrogen is present in proteins, nucleic acids, vitamins, and what are these? Proteins, nucleic acids, vitamins, all of these form the living body. So if you look at the composition of our body is made up of proteins, our body is made up of nucleic acids like DNA, RNA, various vitamins. So all of these are like the constituents of the living body. So nitrogen is playing a very crucial role there. It is also an important nutrient for plant growth, because nitrogen is a macronutrient. That means a nutrient which is needed by the plants in large amounts. So that's about nitrogen. And what is nitrogen cycle? So nitrogen cycle is a process by which the atmospheric nitrogen is converted into various chemical forms. So here you might have a question in your mind that, okay, just now we learned that 78% of the atmosphere is nitrogen. So that means there is so much of nitrogen in the atmosphere. And we need nitrogen in a lot of things. It is needed by plants, animals, all life forms. Now nitrogen is there in the atmosphere, so it can be directly utilized. So why do we need to convert nitrogen into so many different chemical forms? So this is an important question that we are going to answer very soon. So what we understand from this slide is nitrogen is an important part of the ecosystem. So why do we convert it into various chemical forms? That's because even though nitrogen is present in huge amount in the atmosphere, but the problem is that it is non-reactive and it is unusable by plants. For example, plants need nitrogen, but plants cannot take in nitrogen as it is from the atmosphere. So it cannot take in the nitrogen gas which is present in the atmosphere. Moreover, the nitrogen which is present in the atmosphere, it doesn't react with any other element to form some other compound which might be usable by plants. So because of these two reasons, it becomes necessary to convert nitrogen into other forms like nitrites and nitrates, because plants can utilize nitrogen in the form of nitrites or nitrates. So the chemical processes are necessary to convert gaseous nitrogen into compounds such as nitrate or ammonia, which can be used by plants. So nitrogen cycle is all about how this atmospheric nitrogen gets converted into nitrates and ammonia, and again how this nitrates and ammonia give back the atmospheric nitrogen, give back the gaseous nitrogen to the atmosphere. So it is all about that. So here also you will see that the nitrogen, the total amount of nitrogen in the atmosphere remains balanced at all times. So even though we convert some nitrogen into nitrate, but still some nitrogen comes back to the atmosphere. So the nitrogen cycle is a multi-step process. So multiple steps are involved in this process. The important steps are nitrogen fixation, nitrification, denitrification, and ammonification. So these are the 4 important steps in nitrogen cycle. So looking at this picture on the screen, you can get an idea about how the nitrogen cycle works. For example, see, you have this atmospheric nitrogen. Atmospheric nitrogen is always in the gaseous form, that is dimolecular nitrogen. Now this cannot be directly utilized by the plant, so they need to be converted into nitrates or ammonia. So what happens, you see here, the nitrogen fixing bacteria which lives in the legume root nodules, they kind of help in conversion, or they have the ability to utilize this atmospheric nitrogen and do the appropriate conversion. Similarly, here you see these nitrogen fixing bacteria also live in the soil. So there are 2 kinds of bacteria involved. One is the nitrogen fixing bacteria in the root nodules, the other one is nitrogen fixing soil bacteria. So these bacteria do ammonification, wherein they convert this nitrogen into ammonia, and this ammonia is then acted upon by the nitrifying bacteria in a process called nitrification, where the ammonia gets converted into nitrites, and the nitrites are further converted into nitrates, and the nitrates can be utilized by the plant. So you see, in this entire flow, the atmospheric nitrogen got converted into nitrates, which can be utilized by the plants. Now, how the atmospheric nitrogen is given back to the atmosphere? Now, these nitrates can also be converted back into atmospheric nitrogen by denitrifying bacteria. So this process is called denitrification. So by this process, the nitrates get converted back into atmospheric nitrogen. So you see, atmospheric nitrogen gets converted to nitrates by the process of nitrification and ammonification and nitrogen fixation. So these 3 processes help in conversion of atmospheric nitrogen into nitrites or nitrates, whereas denitrification helps in giving back the nitrogen in the atmosphere. So it helps in conversion to gaseous nitrogen into atmosphere. So that is how these 4 processes together help the nitrogen cycle to operate. So we will discuss a little more detail about each of these steps. However, we will not get into too much of detail. So let us first talk about nitrogen fixation. So by now we know that plants and animals need nitrogen to make proteins, DNA and biomolecules. And we also know that nitrogen is a stable compound. So if you look at the structure of nitrogen, there is a triple bond between 2 atoms of nitrogen. So triple bond has very high strength. So therefore nitrogen is very stable compound. So if you really want to break this nitrogen or break this triple bond, a large amount of energy would be needed to break the triple bond. So it is not a very easy task to break the nitrogen molecules. So what is this nitrogen fixation? It is the process of conversion of this nitrogen into usable ammonia. Why ammonia is usable? Because ammonia can be utilized in that form by the plants. So our task is to convert nitrogen to usable ammonia, and this conversion is known as nitrogen fixation. Now the question is, who does this task? How do we do this conversion? Now there are multiple ways of doing nitrogen fixation. For example, there is one process called atmospheric nitrogen fixation. There is another process called industrial fixation, and the third process is called biological fixation. So nitrogen fixation can happen in any one of these 3 ways. So let us quickly look at each of these ways. So let's first talk about atmospheric nitrogen fixation. So what happens here? Here atmosphere plays a major role. So as I mentioned just now, that nitrogen has triple bonds. So these triple bonds are often called as the high energy bonds, because you need high energy to break these bonds. So in atmospheric nitrogen fixation, this is a natural process which happens on its own. What happens is, lightning and ultraviolet radiation provide the energy to convert the nitrogen to oxides. So we all know that ultraviolet radiation and lightning, these have extremely huge amount of energy with them. So that energy will become sufficient to break this triple bond of nitrogen and convert it into various forms of oxides like NO2 or NO or N2O. So that ways it can convert it into its oxides. But the disadvantage of this process is that only a very small amount of nitrogen is fixed in this way, because this is a natural process. So whenever there would be a lightning or an ultraviolet radiation exposure, only then this conversion will take place. So we cannot make it happen artificially. And also with this process only a very small amount of nitrogen will get fixed, but the demand of nitrogen for the plants is a lot more. So these are the limitations, but this is how the atmospheric nitrogen fixation works. Now let's look at the second process, which is industrial nitrogen fixation. So what is this industrial nitrogen fixation? This process is often termed as the Haber-Bosch process, which is named after the scientist who for the first time found out this method of nitrogen fixation. So in this process, under very high temperature and pressure, nitrogen is converted into ammonia. So something of this sort. So nitrogen was made to combine with hydrogen to form ammonia. So this is the chemical equation. So it was, and this reaction happened only under extremely high temperature and high pressure. So it is estimated that half of the protein in a human consists of nitrogen, originally fixed by the Haber process. So this process was initially quite a successful process, and with this process quite a good amount of nitrogen fixation was actually done. However, this process also has its own negative effects. For example, this process leads to a lot of atmospheric pollution, because when you actually perform this reaction, a lot of unwanted or undesirable gases are emitted which might pollute the atmosphere. So this results in atmospheric pollution. Now so far we have been talking about how to control atmospheric pollution, right? So anything that adds to atmospheric pollution is not considered to be a very good process. So we somewhere need to balance it out. In fact, this process also leads to surface water and groundwater contamination. So that ways it also causes water pollution too. So now do you know why does that happen? Because as you remember, as I was telling, that oxides of nitrogen, oxides of sulfur, they have very high tendency to cause pollution. So here when you perform this industrial nitrogen fixation, you actually carry out this entire reactions in industries, where besides this process there are a lot of side products, there are a lot of harmful gases which get emitted, which in turn cause atmospheric pollution. Also, the remains of the reaction, they are all dumped into the water bodies, which in turn can also cause water pollution. So this was about industrial nitrogen fixation. Now let's come to the third process, that is biological nitrogen fixation. Now this is interesting because this has less negative effects, and this is the most common way of nitrogen fixation. So here the process of conversion of nitrogen into usable ammonia happens by living organisms. That is why the name is biological nitrogen fixation, because living organisms do this conversion of nitrogen into usable ammonia. Because by now we know that for this process, for this conversion to take place, a lot of energy is needed. So which is that living organism which would provide that much of energy? So what we see is there is an enzyme called nitrogenase which is capable of reducing nitrogen to ammonia. So this enzyme nitrogenase plays a very critical role in this process of nitrogen fixation. So let us now see what are those nitrogen fixing living organisms. Now there are certain microorganisms which have the ability to fix atmospheric nitrogen. So these are the nitrogen fixing microbes. Now these type of nitrogen fixing microbes are also of two types. The first type are the free living nitrogen fixing microbes. Free living means those microbes which live independently. So they do not depend on any other organism for their survival. So they just live independently. So let us take some examples of free living nitrogen fixing microbes. For example, Azotobacter. This is an aerobic bacteria. That means a bacteria which needs oxygen for its survival. So it is a bacteria which has the ability to fix nitrogen and it lives independently. So it is a free living nitrogen fixing bacteria. Similarly, Rhodospirillum, this is an example of an anaerobic bacteria which doesn't need oxygen for its survival. But this is also a nitrogen fixing bacteria which is a free living. Anabina or nostoc, these are also aerobic cyanobacteria. Cyanobacteria are nothing but blue-green algae. So these are all examples of some free living nitrogen fixing microbes. That is, they are capable of fixing nitrogen, but at the same time they live independently. The other category of nitrogen fixing microbes are the symbiotic nitrogen fixing microbe. Now what do we mean by symbiotic? So symbiotic relationship refers to a type of relationship where two organisms live together such that both of them get mutually benefited. So let's say there are two organisms which are living together. So the first organism is benefited from the second organism. The second organism is also benefited from the first organism. So basically that kind of relationship is called symbiosis. Now we do have many such symbiotic nitrogen fixing microbes. Now the best example of symbiosis that I can tell you is lichens. So lichen is a symbiotic association between fungi and algae. So where algae prepares the food and provides the fungi with food, whereas the fungi gives protection to the algae. So one is providing food, the other is providing protection. So that way both of them are mutually benefited. That is symbiosis. So let us look at some examples of symbiotic nitrogen fixing microbes. For example, Rhizobium, Frankia, these are examples of symbiotic nitrogen fixing microbes. So if you talk about Rhizobium, so these are rod-shaped bacteria. They are free living in the soil. So if they are present in the soil, then they can live independently. But they are in symbiotic relationship with roots of leguminous plants. So roots of leguminous plants. Now what are leguminous plants? So the plants of peas, beans, lentils, they are all legumes, like peas, beans, lentils, these are legumes. So if these bacteria, if Rhizobium is present in the roots of such plants, then it is present in a symbiotic relationship where it derives its food from the roots of the leguminous plants, and at the same time it benefits the roots of the leguminous plants by providing nitrogen. So that means it takes benefit from the roots of the plants, and it also gives benefit to the roots of the plants. So Rhizobium is an example of a symbiotic nitrogen fixing microbe. Now, a question that might come to your mind is, okay, so Rhizobium is a bacteria which is free living in the soil, but it is symbiotic when it is present in the roots of leguminous plants. Now, the question is, will both of these Rhizobium help in nitrogen fixation? No, not really. So, there are two scenarios. In one scenario, Rhizobium is free living in the soil. Now for the free living Rhizobium which is present in the soil, the enzyme nitrogenase is not operational, and we have seen that this enzyme is actually going to convert nitrogen to ammonia. Right? So the main function will be of this enzyme. But in free living Rhizobium, this enzyme is not operational. That means free living Rhizobium will not help in nitrogen fixation. Whereas in case of symbiotic Rhizobium, the enzyme nitrogenase is operational. Therefore, when we are talking about the biological nitrogen fixation, it is only the symbiotic Rhizobium which will be helpful and not the free living Rhizobium. So with the help of these nitrogen fixing bacteria, the atmospheric nitrogen will get converted or will get fixed to the soil into more usable form. So what will these biological, now as a result of nitrogen fixation, what will happen? The atmospheric nitrogen will get converted into ammonia. So this will happen, whether it happens by atmospheric fixation or industrial fixation or biological fixation, but the end result of nitrogen fixation will be that the atmospheric nitrogen will get converted into ammonia.
So children, I hope you found these videos useful, and do make sure that you watch all the 8 videos of the video series on Natural Resources Class 9 Science, and I am sure these videos are definitely going to help you. If you have a feedback to share, do let me know in the comment section. I would be more than happy to hear from you. I will meet you all very soon with a new video with a new topic. Till then, take care. Bye bye.